Greetings, Parappa and Patapon fans alike. It's your old pal Colonel Krank here, and I just got done watching the most recent Sony State of Play for February 2025, and I have to admit, it was ultimately a pretty good show at the end of the day. True, there wasn't as much like big first-party Sony titles as I wanted to see, but for what it's worth, the various games that were shown here were all stuff that was like right up my alley and hit my particular pleasure centers just right. Pleasure center sounds gross. my particular taste, we'll say that. My particular tastes just right to the point where I found myself leaving this show fairly excited for what was coming up, even if it wasn't like the hugest things in the world, even if it wasn't like the massive like kind of AAA games I was hoping to see from Sony. Ultimately, I had a good time just looking at some of these smaller titles. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to put that on my wish list. I want to catch up on some of these and give these a try. So I'm just gonna kind of go through them, not really in any particular order other than just what interested me the most and what got me the most excited or the most intrigued or whatever, just in general, just like what captured my brain. And starting off, we have a new Shinobi Art of Vengeance, and I could not have asked for a stronger start to this show. This game looks phenomenal, like just sharp 2D artwork, really fast-paced, exciting gameplay. Even if I'm not like the hugest, like I've not followed the Shinobi series outside of like the PS2 one, which I always wanted to play and never got the chance to. It looked super stylish and it looked really sleek. So it was always one of those games I wanted to try out, but just never got the chance to. So that's on my backlog. And honestly, with this game coming up, I probably need to actually sit down and play it now. But no, like I've never been a huge fan of Shinobi, so I didn't know what to expect going into this game, but I was pleasantly surprised. Like just from everything shown in this state of play, it looks really sleek. It looked like visually gorgeous. It just looks super good. And it's also by Lizard Cube, who are the folks who worked on Streets of Rage 4, a game which I personally loved. And if they can get it like as good or even better than Streets of Rage 4, then this is probably gonna be like a top tier game of the year for me. Like it just looks fantastic already. So off the bat, really excited for this show. You know, really came out with like a nice foot forward. Then after that, probably what was the most exciting for me was Darwin's Paradox by ZTZ Studios and being published by Konami of all people. And this game is really exciting for me, not necessarily because of how it looked. It looks fine. It looks like a really nice little 2D platformer with a good sense of humor. But this more excites me because like Konami's like really giving it their shot at trying to get back into the industry. I remember talking about this in the predictions video. I was like, how serious are Konami about getting back into the game industry? And like, it feels like they've been on a roll recently with Silent Hill, with Metal Gear Solid, which we'll talk about in a minute. But seeing that they're also like publishing smaller titles like this and taking a chance on smaller titles like this really tells me that like, no, they're back and they're trying to cover as many like facets as they can. And so that's actually kind of exciting because it gives me hope that like, even if a new Castlevania didn't get announced here, which I was really hoping it would have gotten announced here, but it didn't. Even if that didn't get announced here, then maybe that shows that like they're interested enough in gaming again that they will actually greenlight something like that eventually. But that was just what I took away from that. And honestly, even putting that aside, Darwin's Paradox looks like a very charming game. It looks like just like this nice, tight little like 2D adventure. It almost gives me like Oddworld vibes a little bit. I know it sounds like a strange comparison, but I don't know, something about it, like just watching that footage, I couldn't help but think of Oddworld, the most recent Oddworld games, Soulstorm, and what was the one before that? Was that just a remake of Abe's Odyssey? I'd have to check again, but no, I couldn't help but get that vibe from it. And honestly, I'm excited for this. This looks cute. I don't think this will be like a huge game or anything, but you know, be a nice little way to kill time, a nice little way to just like, here's a fun little thing to play. After that, there's what else really caught my eye? There was Warriors Abyss from Omega Force. Now this is really up my alley. I love top-down roguelites. I've been huge into that ever since I played the first Hades. I've been looking for like any kind of game to scratch that itch, and I love the Warriors games. I started with Hyrule Warriors, then after that I played a bunch of the Pirate Warriors ones, which were like the One Piece Dynasty Warriors, and that got me into both Warriors and One Piece. And so like having a combination of here's Warriors plus roguelite elements, I'm like, ooh, okay, I'm looking forward to seeing how those will mix together. That seems like a match made in heaven of just, you know, smashing through enemies with different upgrades and potential modifiers to your combat, so you're not just smashing through guys optimized the same way every time, but you still have that core like satisfying combat. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works, and thankfully I won't have to wait long since it's out today. Although it's out today for everything except for the Nintendo Switch, which it's coming out tomorrow on the Switch for some reason. I don't know why they delayed the Switch version by a day. Did it just need like extra work or something? Was there like something wrong? Like, did they like submit it to Nintendo for verification late or something? That's just weird. So, but it's out now, so I'm probably gonna pick that up as soon as I'm done with this video, and kind of get my own initial thoughts on that and see if it's as good as it looks, because it does look very good. And again, it looks like something that if this is done right, this will be the kind of game I will just dive into and fall in love with. So Warriors Abyss, cool little spin-off. I always like whenever Dynasty Warriors kind of try something weird or new, you know, like it's fun to always see them like do those various crossovers. They've done Fire Emblem, they've done Zelda, they've done Dragon Quest, and so this is kind of another of like, hey, we've done a bunch of crossovers, we've done this gameplay style a couple times, what if we do like kind of a different gameplay style, something that's still about fighting through waves of enemies but sort of in a different format. And so I'm really hoping this takes off and this does well, because this looks like this could be an absolute treat if done well. So looking forward to trying that. But that was also another good highlight of the show. Next up on the list of my personal interests was Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic, and I have to admit I'm a little hesitant about this, not because this trailer looks bad. This does actually look really good, but this is the about I think second or third major FNAF game from Steel Wolf, like their latest non-VR work. And I will admit I am still a bit cautious when it comes to them, just because of how Security Breach launched. You know, Security Breach launched in a really rough, unrefined state, so I'm hoping that this game launches quite a bit better. I know Ruins, the DLC for Security Breach, was honestly a big step up from the base game, so I'm hoping they take what they learned from Ruins and put that into Secrets of the Mimic Day 1, so this can actually be like a good game from the start and not something that has to get like fixed over time. Because like by the end of it, the Security Breach was a pretty decent game once they had fixed a lot of the major issues with it, but the fact that it launched the way it did was kind of unacceptable to me. So I'm like, no, this needs to like start good and get better and not wait for it to be patched to be good, you know? So I'm kind of like keeping away from, or not keeping away, but I am kind of keeping an eye on that one for now, and we're gonna see how that works out. And hey, if it's good, then that'll be a nice surprise. But right now I am very much kind of like I said, a little bit hesitant on that one, but we'll see how it turns out. Up next is Borderlands 4. Don't have much to say on this one. It is just looks like it's more Borderlands, and yeah, I'm excited for that. I loved Borderlands 3 from a story perspective, despite the fact that the actual story wasn't all that great. Like the gameplay was probably the best the series had ever seen, but then the story was just annoying even by Borderlands standards. And so I'm hoping Borderlands 4 maybe takes a little bit more of a maybe not necessarily serious turn, but maybe kind of like tones its comedy back and has it be a little more like a lot less in your face and loud in terms of that comedy, which I know has always kind of been like the bread and butter of that series. But I feel like there's only so much you can do to the whole loud, wacky, in your face comedy before it just becomes fucking tiring, and I just want to like put on something else while I'm playing the game. So I do hope that if the comedy is in the game, that maybe they try a different form of comedy, or they kind of go in a different direction with it, and you know, kind of try something new for this, because it does seem like they are, for the most part, from the gameplay, they're not really changing it up, and I'm fine with that because I don't really want them to change up the gameplay. But if they're not going to change up the gameplay, then maybe take like a different approach to the story instead. Like that could be where like your new kind of elements come in, is like, hey, we're trying something a little different with the story this time around. I think I'd be okay with that. After that is Sonic Racing Crossroads, and just why are you putting this out this year, Sega, when you know there's a new Mario Kart coming? There's a new Nintendo console coming with a new Mario Kart. Why on earth would you release this? This is like in 2023 when they put out Sonic Superstars right next to Mario Wonder, and it's just like got outperformed in every way imaginable, because like of course it was going to. Like I really don't get why they aren't pushing this back a little while. They are doing a closed network test for February 21st, so maybe that if that's when the network test is happening, maybe they'll take the time to push the game back a little, focus on like anything that might need to be improved from that test, and then just kind of like let Mario Kart pass them by and not try to compete with that directly again. I think Sega trying to directly compete with Mario and Nintendo, it's like it's not the 90s anymore. It's like it's not the 90s. We ain't doing that anymore. I don't know. That just seems like a very silly decision. But no, the game itself does look good though. Your cars will occasionally turn to the extreme gear from Riders, which is a really cute little function. Even if like me personally, I probably would have made like the extreme gear like the kind of equivalent to like Mario Kart. You had the carts, ATVs, and bikes. I would have made the extreme gear like an alternate vehicle mode you could select, like the bikes and ATVs of Mario Kart. but having it as a transformation works too. And it does look like we're gonna have some really flashy tracks based off different Sonic games. There's like bits from Sonic and the Black, or not Sonic and the Black Knight, Sonic and the Secret Rings. We have like classic Sonic stuff in there. It looks really good, and it looks like it's gonna be a really fun time. It's just why Sega? Why would you trip this game up by releasing it so close to Mario Kart? Come on now. What else there was? Speaking of Sega, there's a demo for Like a Dragon's Pirates Yakuza in Hawaii coming out this Friday, which, side note, I just love that that's the name. Just like not even shortening it, just Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. Just as much ridiculous shit as you can pile on in one title. I love it. But there's a demo coming up this Friday, and I am really looking forward to this game. The combat looks like a ton of fun, since it's just that sleek, stylish form of character action combat that I absolutely love from games like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry. And thankfully it's not going to be too long until I can get my hands on the game, at least with that demo, and see if it's as good as it looks. But very promising so far for Pirates in Hawaii, and absolutely looking forward to that game. I might even do like a review or some kind of like first impressions on it. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'll have to see where I am at the when that game dropped, but I definitely want to give it some kind of coverage on my channel. After that, there was a new Monster Hunter Wilds trailer, or actually that's what opened the show, but that's what I'm covering next. And it was fine. It's mostly just more monsters. And hey, we got Mitsune back from Monster Hunter, I want to say Rise was the last time it appeared in the series. But yeah, still looks really good. Nothing super duper new other than some really cool monster designs. It was nice to get one more peek at it before the game actually releases. I certainly hope it's better optimized than it was during the beta. It was really kind of choppy, and while I'm sure they'll iron a lot of that out before it comes to market, I'm still a little worried after how that beta period went, but I'm sure it'll be fine when it releases. I'm sure they'll take a lot of that beta feedback into account and put that into the proper game. And speaking of Capcom, we got a 1-2 Onimusha punch of a new trailer for Way of the Sword, which is that new Onimusha that they got announced at the Game Awards last year, and it looks really fucking good. Like the combat looks really nice, like not quite Soulsy, but also not quite like character action level of fast. It looks like it's kind of been somewhere in the middle, which I appreciate, because I like that this game is going to try something unique instead of just leaning all the way into being a Souls. Like it's like, nah, we're kind of going to do half and half, because that's kind of what the original Onimusha was, basically a half and half of an action game and a Resident Evil style horror game. So I'm really glad they're keeping that tradition up in the modern day with this new title, and I honestly hope that they find a really nice balance with this between that like kind of more methodic Souls-like energy and that faster character action gameplay. I also hope there's maybe a little bit of horror in here, because the original was honestly kind of creepy, and so I hope they keep that for this new game. I hope they keep a little bit of that horror vibe, just so it really feels like Onimusha, you know? And speaking of which, we also got a remaster of Onimusha 2 that's going to have improved quality of life and control features, including better analog control, which is going to be really nice, because those old games could be really stiff. I like Onimusha 1 and 2, but there were times where their controls could feel a little bit clunky. So having those revamped for the modern day is going to be nice. It's going to be a fun excuse to replay Onimusha 2. It's coming in May, so we won't have to wait too long for it to drop either. So that'll be a nice little treat to pick up in a few months. What else? Ooh, there was The Midnight Walk, described as a handcrafted dark fantasy adventure. It's like a weird like stop motion horror game. It looks fascinating. I tried looking up the development team and I haven't found much of the work that I recognize. So I'm just like, ooh, this seems like a new kind of like fresh group of talent cropping up in the gaming industry and putting their best foot forward in a really fascinating way, at least in my opinion. So that's looking really good. Trying to think if there's any other games I really want to talk about. Oh, there was a new trailer for Liza P and its DLC, and I have yet to play Liza P, but it's on my backlog. It looks really fun. It looks like a really interesting kind of like dark fantasy take on the Soulsborne genre, which I guess that's a lot of the Soulsborne genre, honestly, but it looks like a very good game all its own, even aside from Dark Souls. So looking forward to playing that, and I think I'll make this DLC the reason to do that. What else? There was Days Gone Remastered. I mean, it looks fine. It's Days Gone. That game didn't leave too strong of an impact on me first time around, and I doubt it will with this remaster, but hey, looks cool at least. Stellar Blade is getting some new DLC, which I love, because like I said, I actually really enjoy Stellar Blade as an action game, despite its controversy. And while I don't have a lot of love for Goddess of Victory Nikki, I don't really know what it is. This DLC looks fun regardless, so I'll probably pick that up. What else? Abiotic Factor, which is like a survival game. It looks almost almost Half-Life inspired, so while I'm not usually into the survival crafting genre, I might give this a shot just for a few hours to see how this plays. It just has a demo or something, I'd love to try it out. There's Tides of Annihilation, a new action game that looks pretty decent. Metal Eden, which is a fast-paced first-person shooter according to its definition, and looking at the trailer, yeah, that certainly fits the bill. It almost looks very like kind of modern Doom-ish. I don't know if that was a particular inspiration on it, but it looks really fun. It looks like it's taking a lot of cues from Doom and Doom Eternal, which I don't mind whatsoever because I absolutely love those things. So hey, if more first-person shooters take inspiration from those games, I wouldn't mind whatsoever. What else was there? There was Mind's Eye, which I wasn't really sure on what it was. I think it might be like an action game. I'm not entirely sure, but maybe we'll get some more gameplay of that soon and that'll clear up what that is. But for now, I can't really put a pin on what kind of game that is because the trailer was mostly just kind of CGI cinematic. There was Dream of Another from Pixel Junk, which looks fascinating. It's a third-person shooter, but you're not using the gun to kill people. You're using it to solidify this kind of world of watercolor dots and kind of like put the world back together, which is a really interesting idea of like, hey, what if we took like a bunch of guns and weapons, typically, very destructive things, and use them as tools of creation instead? It's a very novel premise. I don't know how long that'll actually like hook me for a game, but I'm certainly willing to give this a shot. So Dreams of Another from Pixel Junk looks really cool. That's what else was there? Hell Is Us, which I couldn't even tell anything about this game. It looked very like PS3 era, and I don't even necessarily mean that in the graphics. I just mean in the design aesthetic. This feels like something that would have come out like the mid PS3 generation and be forgotten. It does not look all that interesting to me, unfortunately, but hey, maybe it'll be better once it's actually in our hands. But for now, not a great first showing from Hell Is Us, unfortunately. What else was there? Directive 8020 from Supermassive, their newest game, which is just basically, hey, what if we did Alien? What if we did Dead Space? Like, I don't want to be mean. I'm sure the game will be fun, but man, it feels like every fucking sci-fi horror movie or game you have ever interacted with in your life. Like, it is just, what if we did every trope of a sci-fi horror ever and put it into a Supermassive game, which, you know what, might not be bad. They're really good at doing that kind of like ropey horror and putting a new spin on it through the gameplay. Like, Until Dawn was like, for the most part, just a slasher movie, but it was a really fun interactive slasher movie. So I'm down to see them do that with like The Thing or Alien. Even if it's not super original, I'm sure it'll be fun. And then after that, there's Split Fiction from Hazelight Studios, the same devs behind It Takes Two and A Way Out. And for the most part, this looks like their usual MO, i.e. multiplayer only, character focused kind of like drama game. And it looks very nice. The idea of like mashing a sci-fi and fantasy book together and having the authors literally going through their own work and explaining what that work means to them, I think is a very fun idea. As someone who wanted to be a writer at one point, I think that is like kind of a novel concept, because I'm like, yeah, what if I did go through some of the stuff I wrote and had to like interact with like those characters I made as like an actual world and have to figure out what that says about me. So I think that's a fun concept. Hazelight knows how to do this type of game well. They've done it twice over and won a fucking Game of the Year nom for one of it. So hey, they got this down, and I have no doubt that this game will also be another hit for them. This will be another, just home run for them. After that, there's, oh sorry, that's my phone going off. After that, there was Digimon Storytime Stranger. This game looks fine. It looks like an interesting little RPG. I'm not the hugest Digimon fan, so I'm probably not going to be into this, but I'm sure for people who like Digimon, for Digimon fans, I'm glad to see that like y'all are getting fed. So that looks cool. There was WWE 2K25, which I kind of forgot that these games come out. So these for me are like basically the same as like Madden or any of the yearly sports games. They just kind of come out, happen, and then disappear. Like, I have very little interest in them, so that's probably not going to change with this, unfortunately. But hey, if you're looking forward to that, then I hope you enjoy it. But yeah, there's going to be like a new island mode where you have to go on like, I guess, a Vince McMahon owned island and wrestle, which sounds terrifying. I think if I went on Vince McMahon's island, he tried to hunt me for sport. But hey, novel concept for a game, I guess. So that's fun. Dave the Diver got new DLC with Yakuza content in it to tie into Pirates in Hawaii. So that's cute. I probably won't go back to it for that because I didn't play a lot of Dave the Diver. I'll be honest. I thought it was okay, but it never quite like hooked me in the way it did other people. But I'm sure this will be fun DLC for anybody who still liked that game. What else? There was Blueprints, a really interesting looking game. It's like a change, like basically this, you're in this manor and you're having to solve puzzles, but as you're solving the puzzles, the manor is constantly changing around you and it's constantly like shape shifting essentially. It's a really fun idea, and it feels like, I wonder if it could almost have like a roguelite element, or maybe like each time you go in, the rooms will be all like shuffled around and that'll change how you have to solve the various puzzles in the game. But it's a really fun idea. idea, and I'm curious to see like how it will actually play out. I haven't heard much of this developer before, but hey, this looks like a really cool concept, so I'm gonna be curious to see what they bring to the table with this game. New Metal Gear Delta trailer, and honestly, this game is looking way better than I expected it to. I honestly thought Konami was gonna fumble the bag with this Metal Gear remake, because, you know, for Konami's track record in the past few years, I had like no faith they were gonna get this right. But after playing Silent Hill 2 remake and after playing Operation Galuga, and both being fairly good, I actually am kind of excited for Delta. I'm actually like, oh shit, this might turn out good. And all these trailers, it looks really slick, it looks really stylish, it looks like everything you would want out of a remake of Metal Gear 3. It looks like it's keeping that sense of like artistry and importance to the events of this game, while still not being afraid to get like a little silly or get a little weird. Like, it has that perfect mix of Kojima sensibilities, despite him not working on this particular remake. It feels like the people behind us really kind of got the feel of a Kojima game down pat, and so I'm really happy that they were able to, at least from these trailers, they were really kind of able to recapture that sense of cool, covert, fucking spy film espionage without losing the charm of the original game. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm really hoping that ends up being good. That's also coming out August 28th, so that's coming out like a few weeks after my birthday, so I might pre-order that as like a little birthday gift to myself, honestly. That's looking really good. And then finally was Saros, the new game from Returnal developer Housemarque, which, why wasn't this just Returnal 2? It's literally like a third-person shooter, or at least we assume it's a third-person shooter. We didn't actually see any gameplay out of it. This is only a cinematic trailer, but they still said it's going to be like a roguelite where you're going to be repeating stuff over and over again, and it's going to have like the same kind of like baseline they used for Returnal, at least according to the devs. So I'm like, at that point, why not just make it Returnal 2? Like, I don't get why they felt the need to make it a new property, but it looks cool. It looks very Dune inspired, honestly. Maybe it's just because of like the power armor and him kind of being on like this kind of almost golden hued planet, but it reminds quite a bit of Dune. It reminds me quite a bit of those new movies, so I wonder if maybe that was a big point of inspiration on this title. But Saros looks cool. Only a cinematic trailer so far, so we can't put together a whole lot from the gameplay other than what the devs said after the trailer, but I'm curious to see how this turns out. I liked Returnal. Like I said, I'm a sucker for roguelites, and that was one of the first roguelites I ever played. That's kind of part of what got me into the genre. So this turns out to be basically a Returnal 2, or this turns out to be a spiritual successor, then I'm all down for that. Again, I almost don't know why you wouldn't make it a sequel at that point, but hey, for what it's worth, I'm very curious to see what they're going to go with this direction and how they're going to make it different from Returnal, like how they're going to build upon that and really make something unique. So I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm looking forward to that. And that's about all. So far as like a showcase, I think it was, or a state of play rather, I think it was about as good as it needed to be, you know? Like, it wasn't like insane. We didn't get updates on everything Sony was doing first party, you know? We didn't get like a Wolverine update, we didn't get an Intergalactic update, but it's also, they showed what they needed to and gave us just enough crumbs to keep us going and keeping us like, hey, here's what's in store for the future of PlayStation from both our first parties and mainly our third party partners. Like, here's just like a nice like smorgasbord of games to be excited for. And so I think it did its job all right, even if it wasn't like maybe mind-blowing or is like huge as I would have liked it to be. There's definitely some stuff I would like to have seen here, but what it is, I think it ultimately worked, and I think it's okay. If I had to rate it, I'd give it like a B+. But so yeah, that was the newest state of play. Just want to give my thoughts on that really quick. Hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like the video and crank up the noise. I'm Colonel Krank, and I'll see you soon.